14-day half-life, and this is 315 keV line. So from 315, it comes to 159, it comes to 59. Well, this one is gamma, 159 keV comes to ground state as gamma, and the first transition is highly converted, and because of that, we have the conversion electrons. So we have the advantage here that one has conversion electrons and one has gamma. The gamma 159 keV is ideally suited for SPECT, and the conversion electrons, they have low energy, so that is highly suited for low energy beta particle therapy. So if one can put tin 117 M in a compound which goes directly into the tumor cell, then it can kill the tumor cell through these low energy conversion electrons, and the therapy can be done. So this is so-called Auger therapy being done. Now, tin 117 M can be produced in a nuclear reactor through the N-gamma reaction. But the problem is the specific activity is very low. Tin 116 N-gamma, tin 117 M, specific activity is very low. One can also produce through the tin 117 N prime gamma, when one has the a bit higher specific activity, which means these are the epithermal neutrons and prime gamma. But best way is to have a charged particle induced reactions. And charged particle induced reactions are alpha 3N reaction on cadmium 116 and helium 32 and on cadmium 114, or alpha D on indium 115, or high energy protons and antimony. So these are the 4 different reactions: charged particle, alphas on cadmium 116, helium 3 on cadmium 116, indium, so alpha on indium, and protons on antimony. And the yields, they are shown here. The yields are shown here. It's always in megabecquerel for 1 microampere current and 1 hour irradiation time. And the 4 reactions, they are shown here. You see A is the alpha 3N reaction on cadmium. B is the helium 32N reaction, very low yield. A is very high yield. And C is the indium reaction. And 4th is the antimony reaction. So from these reactions, one comes in the end to the conclusion that the alpha particles, alpha 3N reaction is the best. It has a high cross section, and the yield which one gets is quite good, between 60 MeV and 30 MeV. So this shows the importance of alpha particles. You may ask why. I think from fundamental studies, we know that alpha particles try to populate the nuclear level which is of high spin. And this nuclear level, the high spin 11.5 minus, is produced better in alpha particle than in protons. You see, 0 is the lower level, it's high level. So such high spin levels, they are populated better if the alpha particles are used, because alpha particles get a lot of angular momentum. And so this is why the several reactions are now used with alpha particles and production is done. So the importance of alphas has increased in the last few years. Protons one uses, alphas, special cases. Protons are mostly used, but in special cases, alpha particles. So it's a very important nucleus, radionuclide, and it is coming up further and further. It has been brought to the level of industrial production. Clear Vascular is one company in USA which produces this through the alpha 3N reaction and distributes it, and it is used for special therapeutic purposes. I come to Other reaction, other radionuclide, this is platinum 193M. This is again like tin 117M. It's also a high spin isomer. The 13, the spin is 13 halves, and it emits Auger electrons. Auger electrons are low energy electrons, and it throws a shower of Auger electrons. If one atom, if one nucleus of platinum 193M decays through internal conversion, it is throwing almost 33 Auger electrons. It's a shower of Auger electrons. They're all low energy. If such a high density of electrons is, and if you can get them into the cell nucleus again, you can do very powerful Auger therapy. Important points are that this isotope must be in a no carrier added form, very high specific activity. Secondly, in a chemical form, which goes directly into the cell nucleus. And we know platinum compounds, the tumor-seeking compounds. So platinum cisplatin is used very much in chemotherapy also, so one can make use, same analogy here, can have compounds with platinum 193. And since it's a high spin isomer, here also the alpha 3N reaction is very useful, alpha induced reaction. The cross section shown as a function of energy, and alpha particles over 30, 35 eV, they give very good yield, enough yield for application purposes. So this was just the measured cross section compared with theory, and here how the production was done. Briefly mentioned that osmium 192 was taken as the target material, highly enriched. Target preparation is sometimes very critical. So electrodeposition of osmium on nickel, very thin layer could be formed, then irradiated with alpha particles, then dissolving the target, and dissolve the target, osmium in acid, then you get distilled over osmium oxide. This is taken out. You first dissolve it, and osmium is volatile, so it is taken out, and you can reuse it. And the solution which you have, you put with tin chloride, then with tin you reduce the radioplatin, and you can extract into ether. So reduction with tin chloride and extraction, solvent extraction with ether, remove the ether, and you have in HCN, in 3N HCl, you have platinum 193M. You want to do quality control, radionuclidic purity, you have to do X-ray and gamma ray spectrometry. Chemical impurities were analyzed through ICP-MS. You see, chemical impurity is also very important. A few nanograms can sometimes disturb. So in this case, it was found all less than 20 nanograms to the limits. Specific activity is relatively high. And this way, the specific activity was 10,000 times more than in a reactor. Reactor production gave low specific activity product, the cyclotron product is very high quality. So for Auger therapy, you always need very high specific activity radionuclides. For normal therapy, this is not so necessary. For samarium or for rhenium, if you have some carrier, it is not so critical. But if you want to go into the cell nucleus, then the radionuclide must be very high specific activity. So this way I have now covered all the potential radionuclides, therapeutic scandium 47, copper 67, rhenium 86. Actinium-225, tin-127, platinum-195, 193. 195 is similar to 193. It's the same wave. Terbium-149, I just mentioned only through the spallation and the separation via the online mass separation. So all more or less unknown nuclei are fast developing nuclei, and different methods are being tried on hopes that they will be very useful. Okay. So with this, I have finished the topic now, which was, if you remember, one of the first things I had said, we'll talk then come to the perspectives. I have discussed the different materials. What are the new perspectives now of the radionuclide production? We are slowly coming to the end of the lecture series. As I said, probably either next week in the end we will finish, or at the most one more lecture will be on 1st of December. There is no part 4. So the perspectives are now new things. We have to compare once the reactor production and accelerator production of radionuclides. What are the advantages and what are the disadvantages of reactor production or accelerator production for the future? Then we have to consider the alternative routes for production of technetium-99m. Technetium-99m is the most commonly used radionuclide. It is produced in a reactor, mostly via fission, but also via N-gamma. But sometimes people are a bit skeptical. They say, if all the reactors are closed down, what shall we do? So one is looking for alternative routes. In many cases, it is mostly research. In many cases, the apprehension is also not justified because we have enough technetium-99m from fission molybdenum. But still, science progresses through research. Then we will consider the next topic, new developments in irradiation technologies. There's constant technological work going on radiation technologies, either at cyclotrons, arc accelerators, linear accelerators. We will talk, and then we will talk on the new directions in radionuclide applications. Depending on the availability, it's not a simple therapy and not a simple diagnosis, but there are different aspects which are involved, which have to be considered. And we will then have summary and conclusions. So let's start with the comparison of reactor production and cyclotron production. In reactor production, if we just think back, what are the reactions which are used? Is neutron-induced reactions. Neutron-induced reactions. N-gamma reaction is the most commonly used reaction. Sometimes N prime gamma, which means scattering, is also used, but not very often. N-gamma is most commonly used. And fission is used, fission process. NP is used, and alpha is used to some extent. Sometimes double neutron capture is used. There's one neutron capture, and then the other neutron is captured. So all they are neutron-induced reactions. What is the situation about nuclear data? They're generally available. The N-gamma and fission, NP and alpha cross sections, they have been measured and worked out in the context of energy research by building the reactors. One needed all these data, so they have been available. The same knowledge on cross-section data is useful for isotope production. It's not research has been done for isotope production. The data were there, so one could make use of them. About target preparation, we have seen this is relatively easy. You take the material, you put in a quartz tube, seal it, put in an aluminum capsule, and then irradiation is done. And the reason is the heat generation is not much. So not much heat is generated, and so it is possible to do longer irradiations also, very, very long irradiations in aluminum capsules. Some irradiations are done for years and years. The cobalt-60, if one wants to produce, it's the cobalt-59 material, a few grams put in the reactor for several years, and the activity accumulates, and then the sample is taken out, and then is used in hospitals as cobalt-60 salts. How about chemical processing is often extensive, especially when fission is involved. In case of N-gamma, it's mostly cleaning the impurities, but in case of fission, a lot of chemistry is involved. Because about 50 different elements formed, they have to be separated. How is the specific activity? Generally low. So N-gamma gives us generally low, but if special methods are used, we have seen, then you can have high specific activity. And what are these special methods? For example, if you use the NP reaction. Secondly, use the N-gamma and use the product, N-gamma beta minus decay. So then the specific activity is high. How about radiation dose? Radiation dose is rather high. Reactor-produced radionuclides have a rather high radiation dose, and this is why they are suitable for therapy. They are suitable for therapy. The radiation dose is high unless some special procedures are adopted, yet the radiation dose is not high. If one would ask you at the end of the course, can you tell me what are the 3 most important radioisotopes produced in a reactor? What would you say? PET we cannot produce, PET isotopes. What one can produce? SPECT isotope. And the most important SPECT isotope is technetium-99m. Second big isotope is therapy. Therapy needs beta minus particles, and then you have iodine-131. Iodine-131. And third one is iodine-125, which is used in radioimmunoassay. You need some isotope with low energy, with low gamma and with the electron capture, and then the electrons are used and X-rays are used. So iodine-125 is a low radiation emitting isotope. Iodine-131 is a high radiation emitting isotope in therapy. And technetium-99m is a gamma emitter. It is used in SPECT. So if somebody asks you, you must be able to answer this question at the end of the course. The 3 most important radionuclides produced in reactor are technetium-99m for SPECT, iodine-125 for radioimmunotherapy as well as for Auger therapy, and iodine-131 for normal beta minus therapy. What are the characteristics of cyclotron isotopes? What are the reactions? There are many reactions here. They're all charged particle-induced reactions. It could be simply a neutron emission, PXN, DXN. PXN could be PN, P2N, P3N reaction. DXN could be DN, D2N, D3N. Or they are the alpha reaction, also high cross-section, alpha XN reaction. So different types of reactions are possible because cyclotron can accelerate protons, neutrons, helium-3 and alpha. If high energy charged particles are available, 200 MeV, then they cause spallation. So spallation reactions, spallation yields are needed very much. About nuclear data, in comparison to reactor production, the nuclear data studies are very extensive. I told you sometime that in reactor production and cyclotron production, two things are different. In reactor production, the nuclear data and target read, they are relatively easy. But in cyclotron production, nuclear data are very demanding and targetry also. Relatively sophisticated targetry is necessary. Efficient heat transfer should be done. So targetry and the nuclear data are much more demanding in cyclotron production than in reactor production. Next is chemical processing, which is similar to that in the reactor production. It could be simple or it could be extensive. If it is spallation process, it could be extensive. If it is PN reaction, it is simple. Specific activity is generally high because a new element is formed through protons and neutrons and alphas, so you can separate easily. And if you separate the product, then the specific activity becomes high. Radiation dose is often low because cyclotron products are often electron capture emitters, emission by electron capture. Positron emission and radiation dose is low. But in reactor, beta minus emission gives to high dose. How about studies? SPECT is not quantitative. Cyclotron isotopes give positrons, and there one can do PET investigations quantitatively. SPECT is not quantitative. Just like reactor, if one would ask, what are the three most important radionuclides which are used from cyclotron produced, what would you say? Fluorine-18, that radionuclide is most common. Iodine-123 is SPECT radionuclide. And thallium-201 is SPECT radionuclide. So SPECT are iodine-123 and thallium-201, and PET is fluorine-18. Well, the situation is changing. Gallium-68 is becoming very important. It's also a PET isotope. So, but it's not produced so much as fluorine-18, but it is coming up. So in cyclotron, at the moment, the research is going on more because it is fast developing field. Similarly, palladium-103, I told you once, was being used very much in USA. 20 cyclotrons were constructed to produce only palladium-103. It's also decreasing now. So anyway, these things keep on changing. In reactor also things keep on changing. I would say in PET you can add maybe in cyclotron you can add gallium-68. And in reactor you can add maybe lutetium-177. Lutetium-177 is also getting very popular. I think things are developing, but I was just telling the three most important ones. Cyclotron are these three here, fluorine-18, iodine-123, and thallium-201. Okay, sometimes there is a shift. You produce a radionuclide at a reactor, but you shift over to cyclotron. Why is this? What is the main reason of the shift? The main reason is the yield maybe. And the product yield in the reactor may not be enough, so you want to go over to the cyclotron. The yield may be. But mostly, it is the purity consideration is the major reason. You want to have higher radionuclidic purity, including isomeric purity, want to have higher radiochemical purity, higher chemical purity, You want to have high specific activity. There is also a reason you want to shift over from reactor to cyclotron, high specific activity. And one thing which I said again is the uncertainty in supply would be a reason. Technetium is the example for that. It is very good running. So many patients, about 40 million patients per year are investigated, but still one is a bit skeptical and says maybe the reactor may not run, there is uncertainty in supply, so one should look for other reasons, shift over from reactor to cyclotron. These are the major regions, but mostly I would say purity is the major region, specific activity. Here are a few cases of few examples of shift in production rules. The radionuclides were produced in reactors and one has shifted over to cyclotron. Let us see why. Radionuclide copper-64, it was produced in reactor through NP, zinc-64. One has gone over now to cyclotron route, nickel-64 PN. Why? Why is this change? Why could one not remain on the reactor one? The reason is that the yield is not very low from the NP reaction and the purity is also not good. The low yield and low purity demanded that a cyclotron production method should be developed, and that is the nickel-64 PN reaction. Copper-67 is the same case. NP reaction has been used for more than 40 years. For more than 40 years, NP reaction to produce in reactor. But now one is going over to P2P reaction. I just showed you before the break. P2P reaction going from 80 MeV to 30 MeV. Why? Because of the yield. NP has very low yield, P2P has high yield. And also purity. And P gives you some other isotopes. Chemical purity is not so good as it is in the cyclotron production. Another example, technetium-99m. This I will go in detail, but here it is simply listed. Fission, molybdenum, and from there coming to technetium-99m. Why is this so? The P2M reaction on molybdenum-100 is developing because the uncertainty in supply. So because of that, one is looking for the cyclotron production. Palladium-103, a very important therapeutic radionuclide, was produced via N-gamma. Palladium-102 is very low isotope, so specific activity was very low. If you take even palladium-102 enriched, still the specific activity remains low. So one has changed over, gone from the reactor to cyclotron, rhodium-103, PN, this gives us palladium-103, the specific activity is very high. This is what I said. Many places in USA at cyclotrons producing palladium-103 for use in prostate cancer. Samarium-153, I've just shown you N-gamma is the method of choice, but the specific activity is low. So some attempt has been made to go via the alpha N or neodymium-50, but this is also developing. It's not far advanced that one could use it. Rhenium-186 and gamma in a reactor, now one has gone over to PN. Why to PN? Because of the specific activity. So these are the reasons. It doesn't mean that you can always achieve your aim. It means research is going on. The aim has been achieved in case of copper-64, but not, and in case of palladium-103. Yeah, these two here really good aim, the high specific activity and yield they've achieved, but not in other cases. So still work is going on. Platinum-193 also, PN, N-gamma was the one, and Now one has gone over to alpha 3N, but here also, because of yield and specific activity, this method is chosen. Still, it sounds easy on paper, but it's not so easy. So have an alpha 3N reaction on osmium, it's not that easy. Osmium is a metal difficult to work with. Doing dissolving, electrolysis, baking, and making the sample or irradiation is a difficult task. And having a cyclotron with alpha particles is a difficult task. And then irradiating and separating. So things are not that easy, but still tries one or the other things to see whether it could be possible in the future to produce some radionuclides where these alternative methods. Let me come to the second topic now. First topic was comparison between cyclotron production and reactor production. The other topic is now alternative routes for production of technetium-99. Why? Because there is the danger that reactors may shut down and the production route may be stopped. So due to aging reactors, the reactors are getting old, and because of that, it is necessary, maybe some of them will shut down. The production is in jeopardy, and so alternative routes could be investigated. You see, I've written aging like this. This is the English style. Many don't write with the simply A-G-I-N-G, aging. Americans will not write like this, but this is the British way of writing aging from age, but some write without E. I just tell you, sometimes find some fineness of the language in one and the other one. So this route, I call this route, the Americans call route. Not the pronunciation route, but route seems funny. This is actually a route, it's The route is something, if somebody is fighting something, route. So anyway, but sometimes I think the words are written, but maybe pronounced differently. So one wants to have certain reactions which could be substituted as alternatives. And the first thing is always to measure the cross sections and see what is the situation. Measure the cross sections. I will tell you there are listed, 6 reactions are listed here. The analysis was done what to do if there is a shortage. The first analysis came from Canada. Professor Ruth, he wrote a paper published in Nature in 2009, and he suggested one should make more use of accelerators. But the reason is, at that time, the Canadians, they were producing most of the molybdenum-99, fission molybdenum-99, and one of them, their reactors was closed down for long repairs, and because of that, there became a shortage. It became really shortage. So all of a sudden, panic started. I just happened to be in 2009 in Canada, in the region Edmonton, and there was news in newspapers every day. There was a shortage of molybdenum-99, technetium-99M, and patients are being sent home. So it was a very bad situation. So from then onwards, the real thoughts started developing that one should have some other routes. An analysis was done by Mark et al., European Journal of Nuclear Medicine. It's a group in Netherlands. They are producing also a lot of molybdenum-99. So they also analyze the situation. And then we in ULISH also analyze theoretically and experimentally and see what are the reactions which could be used. Okay, these are the 6 reactions. One says photofission. Gamma F means photofission, photons, hard gammas falling on uranium, natural uranium, and give you molybdenum-99. So this could be a method that you take not enriched uranium and not irradiate with neutrons, but you irradiate with photons. But the cross section is low, so 160 millibarn at 15 MeV. So the amount produced will not be very much. The data are, however, properly known. Now, one thing is, where do the photons come from? I have told you, and we will come again later on, photons come through electrons on tungsten target, and electrons are produced in Linux. So one is independent of reactor. You can have a linear energy accelerator, of electrons, 50 MeV electrons, no problem, rather easy to make. They fall on tungsten, give you hard photons or hard gammas, and they can be used to irradiate uranium natural and get molybdenum 99. Good proposal, not dependence on reactors. In accelerators, you can shut down the reactor and everything stops. No question of danger, no question of proliferation, because uranium enriched is not highly enriched uranium-235, but natural uranium. But the cross section is low, the yield will not be high. So this has been dropped. Next could be protons on thorium. If you have protons on thorium fission, it's also cross sections are known, some of them, but detailed studies are needed. So, but anyway, making an accelerator with such protons, cross section is not very high, 34 millibarns. So the yield will again not be very much. One thought of molybdenum 100 gamma N, again with photons. You see here, uranium was gamma F, and this is now gamma N. If you make molybdenum 99, it is a bit higher cross section, 150 millibarns. It can be used for production, but further studies are needed. Another proposal came that one can have the N2N reaction. You irradiate molybdenum 100 with neutrons. Where do you get these neutrons? They're fast neutrons. To make a neutron generator, not a reactor, neutron generator, a DT neutron generator, accelerating neutrons falling on tritium target, gives you the N2N. Cross section is high, with 300 millibarns at 14 MeV. The cross sections are well known, but there are other problems of making the columns. Now, two charged particle reactions are molybdenum 100, PPN gives us molybdenum 99. The cross section is again not so low, 150 millibarns, and here the data are available. But molybdenum remains molybdenum. If you have molybdenum 100 N2N, it's molybdenum 99. Molybdenum 100 PPN, molybdenum 99. In both cases, the specific activity is low. Lot of molybdenum remains on the target, on the column, so the separation is not so proper. The last reaction considered is molybdenum 100 P2N. Photons on molybdenum 100, P2N reaction gives you technetium 99M. Cross section is high and the data are available. If you have U235 fission with spallation neutrons, is also interesting, but cross sections are missing. Anyway, from all these reactions, if you look at the cross sections, you calculate the yields, and you also the impurities, it comes out that the last reaction, molybdenum 100 P2N, technetium 99M, is the best one. It is the most promising. Molybdenum 100 P2N, technetium 99M is most promising, but extensive data on impurities are needed. How much the impurities will be, that has to be decided. The advantage of the generator system is that molybdenum 99 decays to technetium 99M and there are no impurities. But if you produce a nuclear reaction, P2N, there may be some impurities formed. So separation has to be very carefully done. So it's a small amount of activity. Canadians have shown, because they had problems with cyclotron, that it can give you several curies of activity, almost 1 terabecquerel, which means several hundred curies, so gigabecquerels is possible, but still, I firmly believe that this route will not solve the world shortage. If there is a shortage in Europe, the cyclotron production in Canada cannot help us. It's too far, the 6-hour half-life, it will decay. With molybdenum, the problem, the advantage is it's a long-lived 66-hour half-life on the generator, and every day you can remove technetium-99m. If you produce technetium-99m directly from molybdenum-100, it is decaying with a half-life of 6 hours, and so it cannot be transported very far away. So it's a big disadvantage. It will not solve the world problem because of other reason also. It's difficult to produce. If you have molybdenum-99 column, each morning the nurse can take sodium chloride solution, give it on the column, and technetium comes down. It is so simple. Even a simple nurse in the hospital can do it. They are even called so-called kits. One takes this solution into a different ampule where there is some prepared chemical compound which combines with technetium and it gets labeled radioactive. So very advanced systems are available for you. If you use technetium-99m directly, not from the column, then it will have to be produced every morning and will have to be delivered to hospital. If the hospital wants to have it at 9 o'clock, which means people have to start working at midnight. Some people will irradiate the sample at midnight and take it out, do the chemical separation, pack it and send it to hospitals, and then it can be used. It's much more effort involved. It is possible, but much more effort. And since it is more effort, it will be more expensive also. So I think the best way still remains the fission molybdenum, but this P2N reaction could solve some local problems. It could deliver, for example, in Jülich, if it is made, can be brought to Aachen or to Cologne in local areas, but not very far away. Another problem with the cyclotron produced technetium-99m is the long-lived impurity. See, if the molybdenum-99 decays to technetium-99m, there is no impurity. There is no impurity except that this technetium-99m decays, technetium-99m decays to technetium-99G. It is a very long-lived isotope, 200,000 years half-life, technetium-99G. And that is disturbing. So from molybdenum-99, fission molybdenum gives technetium-99m. That is used, but that decays to very long-lived technetium-99G. And if there is too much of technetium-99G, then it could be dangerous for the brain or for other part where technetium accumulates. So the limit of technetium-99G is fixed. It should not be more than a factor of about 3 more than technetium-99m from fission. But if you produce it directly through the P2N reaction, you remember from last semester, I told you there are sometimes isomers formed. And here we have We have the technetium-99m curve here, and we have the technetium-99g curve here. Both are formed directly. Technetium-99m is formed, which we want, but technetium-99g is also formed, and the cross section is 4 times higher. Which means if you produce technetium-99m in a cyclotron, you will always have 3 or 4 times more technetium-99g. And that may not be acceptable because firstly the synthesis may not work, secondly the present rules of pharmacopoeia tell us that the level of technetium-99g should not be high. The cyclotron production will have second disadvantage. First disadvantage is that producing every day, expensive. Second disadvantage, that the impurity level will be high, technetium-99g will be there. And third case comes now, technetium-98 may also be formed. It's only model calculation done by us, also be formed, but if it is too much, if you use the energy 2425 MeV, technetium-98 may also be formed. So these are the 3 major drawbacks for technetium-99m production through cyclotron. Firstly, more demanding and will be more expensive. Yield is low. Secondly, impurity technetium-99g will be 4 times higher, and some impurity technetium-98 also be there if the energy is 20 ATP or more. That is, all these points, they have to be considered. In the end, if the possibility is there to produce at a cyclotron, some people say the example, suppose in Chile, Santiago de Chile, if there is no reactor available, if no cyclotron reactor produced, molybdenum-99 is not available, then a small cyclotron, baby cyclotron, 2080 machine, can give us technetium-99m, which could be used locally. That's correct. That would be fine. But if you want to make use on a large scale, it will not be very profitable to use this method. Some people did not like this analysis from us. They said, no, you are just making the things bad. I think sometimes you have to make the things as they are. My argument was, I have worked all my life with cyclotrons, with accelerators. I am a proponent of cyclotrons, but I know exactly this radionuclide cannot be made so well through the cyclotron. So sometimes, even if you like the cyclotrons, you have to accept it that it is not suitable for everything. Then with reactors also. But my argument is always, I say, people doing this type of investigations, it's very good science. They are doing something important, they're measuring the data, they're developing targets, they're doing separations. It's very good science, it should continue, but in the end, when it comes to applications, one has to be realistic and one has to see that the product which one is getting is cheap enough and that it can be very good quality. And this certainly will be difficult by the cyclotron production, but still research is going on and some people want to make it, then they should do it. The matter is so important that in the OECD, I think you know what OECD is. OECD is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. And this has the membership, OECD has the membership of the advanced industrial countries, about 35 advanced industrial countries, which includes North America, most of the Europe now, Japan, Korea, Australia, Mexico. So they all belong to OECD, and there the matter is often discussed. They have made a high-level group, high-level research group, NEA, Nuclear Energy Agency. Nuclear Energy Agency is part of the OECD, and they have made a high-level group of experts which is looking for the supply of medical isotopes. So they are analyzing everything which is available for no small amount, no matter how small amount it is made, they are registering and telling it and saying it. So some countries like Pakistan and India, they make small amounts for their own use through fission. Argentina is making more. South Africa is making and even selling it. So there are about 10 different countries which are producing and selling it, and they made the analysis of supply and demand in 2017, but this continues every year. They update it, and the last information is from 2019, and they say that now the existing facilities can be better used. Existing reactor facilities. Some are not irradiating, but now even in Munshin, the planning is to go there to irradiate some samples. In Munshin, we have a big research reactor, which is only for scattering experiments and for some other research purposes. But because of the projected shortage of technetium-99m, the ministry in Germany has allowed that some samples could be irradiated in the reactor, and the molybdenum form 99 fission is transported then to Belgium, and there the processing will be done and the molybdenum-99 will be separated. So similar, some other reactors are also more efficiently being used. On the other hand, Canadians will close down maybe. They have repaired the reactors, but they're almost now more than 40 years. So maybe they will close down sometime. They will not maybe make a new reactor, so there may be shortage. But Netherlands has decided to make a new reactor. The old reactor will be shut down, a new one will be made for isotope production. And Australia is coming up. China is coming up. Argentina has come up. Even Egypt has a high flux reactor now. So I think maybe in some countries will be closed, in some other it will come. So in the end, I think there will be no real shortage of molybdenum-99 fission. And the OECD, this report tells us that the level of supply capacity is quite sure up to 2022 or 23, and they keep on analyzing. And if there is some shortage, then that is reported and the measures will be taken. So I think the summary is that the efforts are underway to look for alternative methods of production of molybdenum-99, technetium-99m, because it is such an important radionuclide. But in the end, I think the fission process is the best, and it will continue. The accelerator production may be only for local use, but the others will be able to supply, will get supplied and make use of it. Nonetheless, it is important that continuous development work is carried out so that the supply of this very important radionuclide is secure. So with this was the second topic. If I can go back here, but I'm in the lecture. I told you the comparison of reactor and accelerator production. We have done our alternative routes for production of technetium-99m. I come now to new developments in radiation technologies. What are the new developments in radiation technologies? The developments are that small high-intensity medical cyclotrons are being built. With protons of energy less than 20 MeV, generally 18 MeV protons and 9 MeV proton machines are being built, commercially sold, hospital-based. They go into hospitals, they produce the short-lived radionuclides, and they are used. And recent numbers I have seen through the IAEA and through some companies that 1,200 cyclotrons are being built, are being commissioned in different parts of the world. So you see, it's a big, big change coming to the medical applications of radionuclides and the technologies being developed to it. What is further going on that the medium-sized cyclotron, multiple cyclotrons, they are also being further, some of them are being built E30 to 40 MeV, multiple particles. Such a new machine has been installed in Jülich Forschung Zentrum. A few years ago, it is still not running, building is getting delayed, but it is available, 30 MeV machine, so it will be used for research and production purposes. So our old machine was replaced by this new machine. So things are going on in different laboratories like this. What is more coming is the intermediate energy accelerators and cyclotrons. Intermediate energy is considered between 30 MeV up to about 200 MeV, which is intermediate energy. And medium energy is where the installation takes place, from 200 MeV onwards. And high energy is really about 2,000, 3,000 MeV. So this is intermediate energy. I call some people for high energy, 50 to 100 MeV, but the real correct the definition is intermediate energy accelerators. Many of them are coming. Most of them have only protons, but some have other particles also. And to tell you, the machines, there are now several in Europe. There is Legrano in Italy, it's Danz in France, in Moscow there is one, in Ipemba Lab, South Africa there is one, Brookhaven National Lab, Los Alamos National Lab, in Japan there is one place, in Brazil they are going to have a 70 MeV machine. In Texas, they have. So this type of machines also are becoming very popular. Not so much as the very small one. I said 1,200 there. Here maybe there are about 15 such machines are in planning or they are coming. But this energy region, I have tried to show you, is very important for production of radionuclides. Previously, it was mostly positon emitters, but now the emphasis is coming also to production of therapeutic radionuclides using these intermediate energy machines. The next type of development is the so-called electron linear accelerators for high energy photons. Here the energy of electron is generally below 50 MeV, and these 50 MeV electrons falling on a heavy target like lead and bismuth give us high energy photons which are used for production purposes. Very strong sources. The advantage is they have a bit more fast neutrons. In reactor, we have mostly thermal neutrons and not so many fast neutrons. In spallation, there are more fast neutrons, and so the NP reaction can be used very well. Okay. So this was the new developments in irradiation technologies. Let us see now how the Production technology is developing. Production technology, I've told you briefly. Charged particle induced reaction, I've talked of solid target heat, which is mostly solid material at PET cyclotrons. There is also the solution target for production of PET. We've also seen intermediate energy reactions are being used for PET, coming up to about 100 MeV. We've seen alpha particle induced reactions are used for some isotopes. Exotic reactions are being used for Russian I have said in CERN. It's a mixture. The technology develops also the methodology of production of radionuclides. Let me emphasize a bit now the photonuclear reactions I will go, and then fast neutron reactions. So continuous work is going on. So the other charged particles we have dealt with enough. I come a bit to photonucleon, and then I will go over to fast neutron reactions. Photoneutron-induced reactions. I've told you how are the photons produced, high energy gammas. You have the electron beam. The electron beam can be easily accelerated. A LINAC, as it is called, linear accelerator. This technology is very well known. You can have very strong, intense electron beams. They let it fall on a water-cooled target. For example, tungsten converter, electrons react and give hard gammas. These are the hard gammas. You can put your sample here, and if it is radiated with hard gammas, the radionuclide can be produced through gamma N or gamma P reaction. How does the spectrum look like? The spectrum of the photon depends on the energy of the electron. The maximum energy of the electron is the maximum energy of the photon. If we have 50 MeV, 60 MeV electrons, the photon spectrum changes here, comes, and N is at 60 MeV. If you have 50 MeV electrons, the spectrum changes and comes here. And if you have 50 MeV, 45 MeV, then you have changing here. So these are the spectra of photons shown for electron energies between 45 MeV and 60 MeV. See, with the change in the energy of the electron, the photon spectrum changes, and one has then the cross-section changes, and one can produce isotopes using one of these spectra. So there are many applications in technology of these photons, but for our interest is in the isotope production. How does the reaction takes place? Use of electron LINAC. LINAC is very commonly used name, linear accelerator. Because a linear accelerator is just a potential drop. Electrons are easily accelerated, and one uses two types of reactions, gamma P or gamma N. So the fast photons fall on some material, the proton goes, and the product is formed. Our photons fall, and then the neutron goes out. So gamma P or gamma N reaction. And the technology of photon production is increasing. So we have here the system, but the database is weak. The IAEA database for photon-induced reactions, it does not give so many accurate data. In this diagram now, I explain, one sees what do we have here. We are putting 40 MeV electrons on tungsten, and the spectrum is shown here. This one going up, the red line going, and comes. This is the spectrum of photons. So in this energy range, if you hit the material with these photons, what can you expect? you can expect a gamma N reaction. For example, molybdenum 100 hit with gammas, neutron goes out, molybdenum 99 is formed. And the cross section is shown here with a dot with a dashed curve. The cross section is shown here, the excitation function with a dashed curve. The maximum is at about 100 millibarns and starts at about 6 and goes up to about 30 millibarns. So this way one can produce molybdenum 99. This is also an alternative method for production of technetium-99m. We have seen the same molybdenum 100. If you irradiate with protons, P2N reaction gives you technetium-99 directly. But if you produce with gammas, hard gammas irradiating, you get molybdenum-99. This you can put on the column and separate technetium-99m. The accelerator technology is very well defined. You can have very strong beams of electrons and you can have very strong beams of gammas. So it is not so bad. This may be one method. Some companies in USA are trying to do now, producing molybdenum-99 via the gamma N reaction. You can imagine how much work is going on in different directions. Some are working with protons fission, some are working with neutron fission, some are working with gammas, some are working directly P2N reaction, some P2N reaction. Also, if there is a thriving, really living field, there is always a lot of work going on. There are different solutions, there are different ways to Rome, as one says. You can go via München, or you can go first to Vienna maybe, and from there going there, and if you want still some other way, you can go to Paris and then go from there as you like. It's short way, a long way, there are many ways to Rome. So same is here. For one isotope, there could be different ways, and especially important isotopes like molybdenum-99 or technetium-99 indirectly, one is trying everything which is possible. It's all very good science. That's all very good science. Good measurements, good calculations, theory. But whatever in the end will be applied, that will depend what is simple and what is cheap to make and easy to make. I think this is always, and purity. There is no compromise in purity. It must be pure enough. So you see, this way it is used. Other reaction is the gamma P reaction. We have talked about scandium-47. Scandium-47, if we have titanium-48, hit it with gammas, a proton comes out and scandium-47 is formed. And the cross section for this is very low. This is shown here in the diagram, this green diagram. This green curve starting from 12 going up to about the 30 MeV, up to about 45 MeV. It's extrapolated, but it's a low cross section, just a few millibarns. So you can produce scandium-47, but you have to have a very, very strong gamma source, very strong linear accelerators. But this has been done. Aragon National Laboratory has pushed it through very strong LINAC, very strong gamma source, and from there scandium-47. So I think this type of work is going on. It's not conventional accelerator use. It's the use of secondary radiation, which comes from an accelerator. So LINAC is an accelerator, but you don't use protons or electrons. You use the gammas which are coming out. Okay, let us see the next one is, so that through the gamma, 3 isotopes have been produced very much. The isotopes are at least being tried. Scandium-47, gamma P, as I said, small amount, tracer amounts have been produced here. In Aragon National Lab, 186 megabecquerel. Copper-67 has been produced at several places. In Kharkov is in Ukraine. Idaho is in USA, Argonne is again in USA. This they have pushed really through and made it become a good. So sometimes one has to push all the efforts in one direction. It's not enough to just do research at 1 or 2% level. If you are really developing something, there has to have a good team of experts in several directions. So I think science has to be pushed sometimes to make real progress. Librium-99 is also being produced, but so far only in tracer amounts in India, in Korea, in Ukraine. One advantage is that photonuclear reactions, they are simply to carry out. Targetry is easy. Just like neutrons, gammas do not produce much heat. So you can take the sample, just put it in capsule and irradiate with hard gammas, and you get the material. Target is easily. But chemical processing is demanding because the samples are very large. Not 10 milligram samples or 200 milligram samples. If you're a 10-gram sample, and you have to dissolve it and separate it, then chemical processing becomes demanding. Another limitation is the photonuclear reactions cannot be used for everything. They can be used only for a few therapeutic radionuclides, and either gamma P reaction or gamma N reaction is used. Other reactions are not possible. Still, for some of these special radionuclides, especially these three which I have written here, Candium-47, copper-67, lithium-99, the photon-induced reactions, they appear to have some promise and work is going on. Another advantage of LINAC, linear accelerator, is you can produce secondary neutrons, not only hard photons, but also secondary neutrons. What happens there? The high energy photons, as we have seen, the electrons, they give first gammas, and this gamma, if there is some hydrogen containing material, that gives us the neutron. Hydrogen containing material or beryllium containing material gives us neutron, beryllium target or deuterium target. I may go back. It's here. We have here electrons coming, falling on tungsten, give you hard gammas. But if you just have here, near here, a plastic target, hydrogen or deuterium containing material or beryllium containing material, the gammas, they react and you get neutrons coming out. So you get a mixture of photons and neutrons coming out. So this is why the LINACs are used very much in production of secondary neutrons. And electron linear accelerator will serve as a very strong source of neutrons, just like a reactor. Some of them can give you as much as a reactor. The only thing is, the space is limited. You cannot irradiate big samples. Only small samples can be done. But still, for some of the works, scattering experiments, where the very high fluxes are not needed, can use it as a substitute for reactor. So one would like to make use of these neutrons also for production of some radionuclides. So not only the hard gammas, but also white neutrons. I bring now the word white neutrons. What does this mean? White neutrons, are they white? Are they black? No, it's just a mixture has been given because it's a mixture of slow and fast neutrons and this. So this type of undefined neutron source, sometimes even a white neutron source. Sometimes the names come, like 40 years ago, 30 years ago it came up. It's not a color distinction, one doesn't know neutrons are white, neutrons are black, one wouldn't know. My guess is protons are darker and neutrons are whiter, I don't know. It doesn't see the neutrons so many number. there would be a big pile of neutrons, several kilograms, one could see the color. But it could be only a neutron stars. The neutron stars are very shiny. So it could be. But anyway, I just come to the name sometimes. White neutrons. There is some term also used when neutrons sky shine. Sky shine. The neutrons go up and they're reflected some from the atmosphere, and one called sky shine. So some funny names, some fantasy names are given, but neutrons are very difficult to handle. They can go everywhere, they can penetrate everywhere, they can scatter, they can be absorbed. So the neutrons are actually nuisance. But this trend one is showing that if we have a mixture, at LINAC we have a mixture of gammas and we have a mixture of white neutrons. So one can use for the production of molybdenum-99 through the molybdenum-100 N gamma, the molybdenum-100 gamma N, and molybdenum-98 N gamma. So a mixture of neutrons and the gammas can lead to a mixture of molybdenum-99 production through two routes. A second type of neutrons are produced. They are not now white neutrons, but they are breakup neutrons. They are formed through the breakup of the neutron. Through the breakup of the neutron, they are produced. And this breakup means the neutron is not very tightly bound. So if the neutron beam comes here from the cyclotron, it falls on a beryllium target. It is broken up into proton and neutron. Proton is absorbed, the neutron goes out, and the energy of the neutron is not exactly half, but it is about 40%. So the neutron energy, about 40% of neutron energy is reflected in neutrons. If you have 30 MeV neutrons, your neutrons could be 12%, 12 MeV. So 30 MeV neutrons could give you 12 MeV neutrons. The spectrum again is a very broad spectrum. We have here the neutron spectrum from 30 MeV falling on a beryllium target. You see the spectrum. This is the spectrum here, intensity, and this is the energy. First, a low energy component decreasing, and then this maximum comes. This maximum is the breakup neutron stored. And this maximum is at about 40 to 45% of the neutron energy. If you have 30 MeV here, this maximum comes at about 13 MeV. This type of neutrons are produced. They are very intense sources. You can use your sample, irradiate it, and if you irradiate it, you get your radioactive product. The question is, what will you get? Which product will be there? Will it be more N-gamma reaction, or will it be NP reaction, or N2N reaction? Well, it has been shown by some studies done in our institute and elsewhere that this type of reactions are very suitable for NP reaction. Neutrons come in, protons can go out. There is a threshold, and if the proton goes out, then the product is formed, and this product is carrier-free. That is a new element. So this type of neutron sources would be used for the production of special radionuclides. And what are the special radionuclides? If you remember, it comes always to the same type of radionuclides. We have phosphorus 32 through NP, we have sulfur 33 through NP, the copper 67 through NP, we have strontium 89 through NP, scandium 47 NP. All these therapeutic radionuclides NP, which are not formed very much in the reactor because the energy is low, they can be produced very well at the breakup. And this has been utilized, and some measurements have been done, and some production has been also carried out. So we can put here now, if I show the next one, this is a list which can be produced with fast neutrons. This is an analysis, and examples are sulfur 32, Np, phosphorus 32, chlorine 35, Np, sulfur 35, titanium 47, Np, scandium 47, all Np reactions, zinc 67, Np, copper 67, zinc 68, and Np. NNP could also be, this is a higher threshold, it has a bit higher threshold. So NNP will also give this one. You can make use of D-beryllium, or a Japanese group is making D-carbon. They take 40 MeV neutrons and let it fall on graphite. On beryllium one can do, or on graphite. It is also possible, the flux is lower, but it is possible. And using this way, the Japanese have been able to produce, they irradiated a zinc 68 sample, an NP reaction, to produce copper 67, they separated it chemically, and they used it for pre-clinical studies. I think in the end, everything is geared to finding out whether the yield is enough and the production methodology gives product pure enough that it could be used in the production of some radionuclides. Now, these neutrons could also be used for production of fission of thorium-232 or uranium. Not uranium-235, you can have also fission of uranium, natural uranium with these fast neutrons, a fission of thorium-232. And the reason is, U-235, there is the danger of criticality problem, proliferation problem. So one wants to come away. If you use natural uranium or natural thorium, you can produce some isotopes through fission without a reactor and without the criticality problem. So I think maybe today's lecture is full of new ideas, new concepts. I would say read the notes carefully, discuss with them. If you have not understood anything, you can write to me by email. But I hope I will have a chance to discuss with you personally also in January. So, but the point to make here is that radionuclide development science is a living, is a thriving and dynamic science. A lot of research is going on. If you look at the references which I am giving here, but in 2017, not long ago, that this paper has been published. It's 2-3 years ago. The Japanese have done. This is my paper. This has become a very important paper. Nuclear medicine and biology. It has been reported as a highly cited paper. And this was based on a lecture I gave in Berkeley. I was invited to a conference in Berkeley in USA. And then I gave this lecture, and then they asked me to give a writing for published in a journal. And this has given an overview of what all can be done with the help of accelerators to produce the data. I think the progress is going on, and I think at this point I would like to stop today because the other explanation source will need a few more explanation. So I think this is the place we stop for today, and I thank you very much for your attention. I hope it is not too much. Learn the things, read the things, try to understand. Thank you. Attention.